This is the secret guardian you dragged me 5,000 miles to meet?
Who's the mouth?
Mr. Stark is brash, but I assure you he can be trusted.
Wait, you seriously don't know who I am?
The fabric of magic is shifting, Johnny. The prophecy of the Midnight Sun is upon us.
Your last crusade cost me plenty. This time I intend to look after my own.
Hey pal, I don't think you understand. Things are changing. 2 + 2 no longer equals 4. Up is sometimes down, and Strange here is actually starting to make sense.
Do I look like someone who gives a damn about any of that?
No, you look like you should be bouncing for the double deuce. Listen, all I know is hell's coming, and my pal here says you can help.
That's where you're wrong. Hell's not coming. It's already here. You're welcome, Robo-Man.
Iron Man? It's okay. It's fine. I know what he meant.
Hey everybody, I'm Eric Spicer from the Gamer.com editorial team. I'm here with George Foster, and how can you not love this game already, right?
Yeah, Johnny Blaze is looking kind of old there.
Oh yeah, he's the old timer in this one. Our Ghost Rider is Robbie Reyes in this game. And that is the scene that leads us into the tutorial mission, which is what you're seeing now. But I thought that it was a great example of the writing style and the humor and the way that this game approaches the Marvel Universe. Let's get right into the combat, because it's probably not what you would expect from a tactics game. If you're a fan of the genre, this one does a lot of things different. You probably noticed, first of all, that there are cards.
Infamously again.
Yes. If you've heard about this game, you've probably heard about the card system. That doesn't mean it's a card game, which I think that we have enough of with Marvel Snap right now. But so every character has their own deck of cards. It's only ever 8, and you can add and remove cards from their deck. And then when you start a combat encounter, all 3 of those decks get shuffled together, and each turn you'll draw 5 or 6. And that determines what abilities you can use in combat. And the abilities are pretty simple. They have a damage. They have sometimes an effect like knockback, so you can knock enemies into each other. And then they'll also have a hero value. That's sort of your like resource pool, and you'll build heroic power, and then you can use that. You can spend it on more powerful cards. The other thing that you'll see that's a lot different from other tactics games is that there's no cover mechanic.
Oh, right, yeah.
All of the heroes are just sort of standing out in the open, and when you do an attack, they're automatically going to move into a position. You don't have any control over where they move. You know where they're going to move. You'll see a marker on the ground, and you can choose what abilities you use based on that. But you're not positioning your heroes behind cover or trying to set up for like a defensive position. That's not part of it, and it wouldn't really fit either with the theme of superheroes or the way that they fight in battle.
See, that's strange, because I haven't seen much gameplay of this so far, but I know that Spider-Man is kind of movement-based, isn't he? Like, he jumps between enemies?
Right, so positioning is super important. It's just not a like defensive cover-based system. You're going to use your positioning to set up knockback attacks, like what you're seeing here, how Doctor Strange can use these vortexes to push enemies into each other, and also to use the environment. You can push enemies into obstacles. You can sometimes push them off the map for an instant kill, which is like always super satisfying. And you can use your heroes together. You can position heroes on either side of an enemy to do like a double attack against them. So positioning is super important, but you only have one move per turn, and that's not per hero. That's total.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can only move one hero, but of course, using your abilities and stuff moves them, and there's other ways to get them around. Here you see you can use the environment. Yeah, so it is very different than other tactics games, and of course, very different than the tactics game Firaxis is known for, XCOM. But it's great. It's the card system makes it always feel like you don't have total control over what's going to happen each turn. You have to try to prepare based on what your heroes are good at, rather than prepare for exactly what moves they're going to take, because you don't have control over what the enemy's going to do, obviously, but you also don't have control over what exact abilities you're going to have. We jump forward to another fight here. This is a typical mission. There's a lot of variety in the missions. This one is to disable this truck, and you only have so many turns to do it before the truck leaves. And of course, you also have to contend with these Hydra forces. This team is Captain America, Magic, and Ghost Rider, which is a combo that I found that I liked a lot. Ghost Rider is all about doing heavy damage to the enemies and himself. One of his best moves is to open up like a portal to hell on the ground and push people into them. And Magic is all about repositioning enemies with her portals. One of my favorite things about the game is just how much each character has their own strengths and their own play styles, and finding ways that those characters work together. Because Limbo uses her portals to move people around, she's really great specifically with Ghost Rider, because she can put them into groups for him to do attacks against. She can push them through portals into his hell pits. There's all kinds of cool little interactions that they can do together. And then Captain America is just sort of the tanky character you would expect. He just puts his shield up and takes hits for the team.
So who's your favorite character on the roster?
I think if just in terms of power, Spider-Man is practically broken. The way that he can move all around the battlefield and use all of the environment stuff, usually for free, he gets just like extra moves. It feels like you get 2 turns sometimes when you play with Spider-Man. But I love Magic. I love Ghost Rider. There are no bad characters in the game. The roster has 12 heroes, and if you spend the time to level them up, get new abilities, which is something we'll talk about later in the video, how that works. But all of the characters are good. They're all strong. Some are more situational than others. This is a move I really like, opening the portal on the truck and then pushing this really big guy through a portal to damage him and the truck.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah. You can get really deeply strategic with your moves.
So one thing I'm kind of curious about, mainly as someone who hasn't really dived into XCOM that much, in terms of difficulty, how does it stack against that? Because XCOM is quite brutal.
They have a very cool way that they approach difficulty in this game. There are 8 difficulty tiers, and you start the game on normal or like story. Like the easy mode is called like story mode. Right. You start on normal, and then as you complete missions and earn star ratings, you can earn between like a 1, 2, or 3, depending on how good your mission was. You will unlock higher difficulties, and it's really transparent about what higher difficulties are. The enemies get more health, they deal more damage, and in turn you get more experience and more currency for cosmetics. And so you can scale that difficulty up and down from mission to mission. So if you're going on a mission that requires you to use a hero that you haven't really leveled up a lot, or a team that doesn't work together very well for you, then you'll scale that difficulty down and get less rewards. And then if you have your like star players, you can scale it back up. So you have a lot more control over the difficulty from mission to mission than most games.
Is there still like an accuracy? I mean, I'm not seeing like too many ranged attacks for that to be a thing, but is that still there?
Right. So accuracy only comes into play when you're knocking enemies off of the map, because that's an instant kill, even if they're full health. So the lower their health, the higher the success percent. And that's it. Like, yeah, accuracy is like a huge thing, divisive thing in XCOM and in some other games like this. But it only comes into play when you're doing those high risk one hit KOs. Otherwise, there's not really, aside from the cards which come into your hand randomly, there's really not a lot of randomness.
Yeah, it's going to be the cards that are the make or break for some people. I can tell, because even when I'd heard the cards, I was like, ooh.
Yeah. And you get 2 redraws every turn, so you can dump 2 out of your hand and draw 2 new ones. And when you're playing one mission, especially if it's one of the longer ones, you're going to get the same cards over and over and over and over and over, because you only have, the 24 total. It's 3 heroes, 8 cards apiece. And so you can start to predict what cards are going to come up based on how long ago you used it. And sometimes you'll need to redraw cards to get a specific one, and you will end up getting the cards you're looking for. You can put 2 copies of an ability in. So you could, if you wanted to, you could limit just to, 4 different abilities to each in an 8-card deck. Getting close to taking out this truck, and then we'll jump to the other side of this game, which is
side I'm excited for.
This is what I was a lot more, I guess, dubious about before I got my hands on it, was the sort of social sim visual novel side of the game. The marketing would have you believe that it's like 50-50 tactical combat and like relationship building. In my experience, just sort of trying to do everything, it's more like 70-30 talking to people versus versus fighting.
Friend simulator of Marvel characters. I'm so here for it.
I think that will be divisive. Obviously, like it is a lot of apple picking with Wolverine.
What's wrong with that? That's amazing.
I think it's great. But yeah, these combat scenarios take 5 to 30 minutes on average, though I have spent up to an hour in like one very complicated fight before.
Oh god.
But every time you finish one of these missions, you go back to your base, which is the Abbey, and you have a night cycle and a day cycle to just like do maintenance, pet your dog. This is Charlie the Hellhound, who is another character that you can fight with in battle. That's one of your character's like ultimate abilities, is to summon Charlie to fight with you, which is very cool.
This looks awesome.
So this is the hunter, your player character. It's an OC, but this character has their own like history and backstory.
Player decided or completely set?
So the story is totally linear, but you control your character's personality.
Right.
So and the way that you shape their personality will also determine how they fight to a degree.
Right.
The kinds of abilities that they get, and whether they're more like of a assassin or a healer or a tank, is connected to what their personality is and how you talk to other characters.
Okay.
It's interesting how it all folds into each other. But what we're seeing right now is a hangout. You'll periodically get these hangout opportunities. They'll often be available for the characters that you just took into battle, but sometimes you'll have other options too. So here I am, just having some deep conversation with Magic.
Cliff gazing, I love it.
And this is where the other characters will sort of reveal their insecurities or what they're thinking about at this point in the story. And you'll have dialogue options that will increase or decrease your friendship with them based on how you respond.
I love that.
To their feelings. Yeah. And here, like that little heart there showed that my friendship was going up with Magic because she liked the way that I interacted with her. And something that I really like about the way that they do the dialogue trees is that there is a binary morality system. It's
Right.
and dark. But it's not the case that you just pick all the light choices to be friends and all. It's not like everyone just wants you to say the nice thing all the time.
Right.
Like Magic almost always prefers the dark option because that's her personality. And when a character is being selfish or being self-involved, they don't want to hear like the goody two shoes response. They want you to indulge them. So you have to balance, you have to sort of balance how you respond with the morality system on top of the friendship system, because they're overlapped, and it doesn't really make sense to just always pick the light option or always pick the dark option the way that you would in most like of these like karma meter type games. It's not like that, and I really appreciate that.
This has sold me. This has totally sold me, all of this.
So here we're looking at the Forge, which is where you will research upgrades for the Abbey. These give you lots of things. These give you new combat tools, which are like single-use items. They'll give you brand new abilities that you can use in combat. You don't start out with the ability to, for instance, push one bad guy into a teammate. That's something that you get through these upgrades. And then after every mission, you get a Gamma Coil, which is like a card pack. So you get to look at 4 abilities and then pick 2. And sometimes they'll roll with modifiers. Like the second one there called Gather has a modifier that adds 1 bleed. So that's like just like that ability upgraded.
Right.
And so you get to pick 2. And then from here, you'll take these over to the training room with Blade, and you'll have the opportunity to upgrade them further. So you can take any 2 cards and smash them together, and they'll become a better version of that card. And then later on in the game, you can also add your own modifiers. So you can spend currency, and you'll get to choose from a list of modifiers to add to that ability. And you are constantly upgrading your moves. There, I just bought an upgrade for Lash, which added Quick. Quick means that if the enemy dies, you get a refund on the card play. So it's like it becomes a free card. Yeah. And then the other part of the game is just sort of this open zone exploration around the Abbey grounds. It's a huge sort of open space that expands as you progress, and it's full of collectibles. It's full of reagents that you'll use for crafting. You can make all kinds of different battle items and upgrade items and stuff using these like plants and stuff that you'll pick up. And also a big important part of the story happens out here. And it's all totally optional. You can play through the entire game never leaving the Abbey, but if you do, you have this big map to explore with like lots of secrets to uncover outside. The gameplay of that is a little bit jank. I don't know if you can tell.
I can kind of see a little bit.
Yeah, the locomotion isn't great, and sometimes your interacts just don't, like you'll see here, I'm trying to pick up these mushrooms and it won't let me. The workaround I found, and I don't know if this will translate to the live game, but you have like powers that you collect out here. And if you just use one of your powers, you'll be able to pick something up, like if it says you want. But anyway, yeah, so like these are like puzzle sections that I'm like walking past and just sort of exploring around this area. But this is just one little small part of like kind of a big open world, not an open world, but like an open zone that you'll see more and more of as the game progresses. So it's huge. There's a lot going on in this game, and it also feels a little disparate on the surface. You know, it's like this tactical combat, but it's also a card game, but it's also this like life sim relationship builder. But it does such a great job of making all of those pieces work together. Everything feeds into the other side. When you take your friends into battle, their friendship increases, which changes the dialogue options that you have back in town, which will further increase your friendship and unlock new abilities for them in combat. So it all weaves together really well. We're about to start on a boss fight here, one of my favorite ones, with Venom. Obviously, Venom doesn't look how you would expect. He's been demonized by the villain Lilith, and Spider-Man knows that this bell tower is a good way to defeat Venom from experience. I'm sure everyone knows that story. But as soon as we get here, he breaks the bell. So you have to take on Venom and his Hydra lackeys while also repairing that bell so that you can disable him.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's a complicated fight. You have to balance these ads that are constantly coming in with dealing damage to Venom and creating opportunities for yourself to work on fixing the bell. And then you have this big open space right in the middle of the arena where you can knock enemies into the hole.
So this is a specific question, but as a big Spider-Man fan, how is he done in the game, like as a character? Like done justice, or?
He is so awkward.
Yes.
He is such a huge weirdo nerd. He doesn't know how to have a conversation with anyone. He's deeply insecure about his place there and feeling like he doesn't belong on this team. It is the Spider-Man you know, but it is so much closer to the comic book version of the character than any of like the MCU or film versions. And you'll find that with the entire roster. The story and the characterizations of these heroes is very respectful of their comic book history and their comic characterizations, even to the point where things contradict the MCU, which I think most games would not be willing to be like, oh, actually that thing that everyone knows from the movies, that's not actually how it happened in the comics, so we're going with the comics. And it does that frequently. I just pushed that guy in a hole with a 39% success rate. One of the very exciting things that happened in this game.
See, I came in, I wasn't totally sold on the combat, and then watching this now, I'm still kind of like, I need to try it myself, but the social elements, seeing that little glimpse there, I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. So I think I'm going to have to get it. I'm going to have to.
The combat takes some time to wrap your mind around because it's so unique. Everything about this game is so unique. But I think once you start to feel out each character's play style, it really starts to click. And on top of that, you are constantly upgrading their skills. Like there's not a single mission that goes by where you don't get to add a new ability to their deck or slightly upgrade it or make some kind of modification to improve what that character is already good at. So you just are constantly changing and improving and also mixing and matching your team. Every single mission demands that you use a specific hero, whether that's the player character, the hunter, or just one specific character. So you can't just pick 3 and go through the whole game with those 3.
Okay.
The roster is 12 heroes, and that is your team, all 12 of them, and you have to use them all. And some are going to be stronger than others. You're going to focus on some more than others. By the end of the game, I was only best friends with 3 of them. I had only reached the max friendship level with 3.
3 out of 12. My God.
Yeah. So you can focus on specific characters, but all of them have to be leveled up. All of them have to be used in battle. You can't really leave anyone behind. And they do help with that by making everyone level up when your main character levels up. So anybody that does fall behind still sticks with a baseline. But on top of that, you have to manage their cards and their abilities and their upgrades and stuff. So
I'm annoyed at myself that this wasn't on my radar as much as it should be. I'm not big on tactical games, but this kind of feels a little bit more welcoming. Maybe that's just the marvel of it all, but
yeah, I think it's a lot more action focused than your typical tactics game because it's all superpowers. I love this portal move. Out one end, into the other. Boop.
Ah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's very cinematic and flashy. Every move is like a big to-do with a camera move and nice feedback, big hits. This is a good one too, Gather. So I drop portals underneath all of them, and then drop them out of portals above, and crash them into the ground. Yeah.
Oh, man. How long did it take you to beat?
So I spent time getting all the collectibles and spent a lot of extra time on side missions and stuff. I definitely didn't play like efficiently. That said, I spent 80 hours to finish the campaign. Yeah.
Oh no.
The developers predict 40 to 60 for your like first playthrough, but I had every conversation. I went to every club meeting, which is something we didn't talk about. There are clubs that you can attend. There's a book club. There's shop class, which is
That's ridiculous.
Spider-Man and Ghost Rider tinkering. Yeah, so there are several clubs you can attend that will give you rewards and extend the story. But yeah, like I never missed an opportunity to talk to a hero that wanted to talk to me, or go apple picking with Wolverine. So yeah, it took me 80 hours, and I got every collectible in the game in the like open world section too. So that was a big chunk of it.
You've said apple picking with Wolverine twice, and I can't tell if you're being sincere about it.
Let's see. I went with Wolverine specifically. We did some landscape painting. We went down to the creek, and he mostly watched. But and I think we did some stargazing. You want to try to pick activities that the hero's going to actually like. So
you
sometimes
pick the activities.
Yes, yeah, you pick the activities. So sometimes me and Wolverine would just have a drink because I know that he would be down with that. And the activity, if they like the activity more, your friendship goes up faster.
I still can't believe you only have a quarter of the potential to have a quarter of the heroes maxed out. That's pretty stressful.
Right. So maxing out a hero will give you their Midnight Sun ability, which is like their one legendary card. And you get perks every time you level a hero up. Their passive abilities get better. So, for instance, with Spider-Man, Spider-Man has a chance that when you do an environment attack, you get the points back that you spent to do that attack. So it basically is free. And the higher your friendship with Spider-Man, the higher the percent that you'll get that refund. But every hero has their own passive. Like Wolverine's is every time you redraw a card, he heals. And so
that makes sense.
as your friendship gets higher, he gets more health. These boss fights, when you take down the boss like I just did, you have to do it twice. So
Right.
they get down for a turn, and then you got to take him down again. So in this particular boss fight, when Venom goes down, you have to spend the time when he's down to fix the church bell, which can be very tricky when you're also surrounded by Hydra.
Yeah. Well, you have to ask with every kind of Marvel game as well. What about the costumes? Much there?
Yeah, so you have the costumes for battle and the costumes for the Abbey. So they all have their outfits they wear when they're hanging out, and so do you. Your player character does too. And there's a currency called Gloss that you'll earn every mission, and you can use Gloss to unlock costumes. For the heroes, they're like superhero costumes. I'm pretty sure that the only one that you can unlock is their Midnight Sun costume, which you get from maxing out their friendship.
Right.
But if you have like the deluxe version, you get like 24 costumes. In fact, Magic is wearing one of the like deluxe edition cosmetics. So you will get different color schemes though. You'll
Right.
get like for Spider-Man suit, you'll get like 8 different colors,
Okay.
colorways. But as far as actual different costumes, it's just the Midnight Sun one. And then back at the base, like the outfits that they wear, there's dozens and dozens. You'll change their shirt and their pants. You'll change their swimsuits. You can choose like what bikini the Scarlet Witch wears and what swim trunks
Okay.
Blade has on. Yeah. So there's lots and lots for that. And you'll earn them.
Man, just Midnight Sun's coming in December for a game
I
of the year
know.
now.
It's it's right at the top of my list. I haven't totally decided what my game of the year is, but it could be. This could be my game of the year. I really love it. Yeah. And I started a New Game Plus immediately because I wanted to max out all my friendships. And that carries over into New Game Plus. So
So you could get all 12.
so it'll be yeah. By the end of a second playthrough, probably you can get all of them because you'll have made good progress on everyone. You just won't have finished everyone the first time.
Yeah, this boss battle's like quite long as well. It's quite involved.
Oh yeah, we're not even halfway through. I don't think this.
Is this one of the first ones?
No, no. But Venom is the first main boss. If you've kept up with like the marketing stuff, you've seen all the bosses at this point. Yeah, so it's Venom, Sabretooth, Scarlet Witch, the Hulk, and Crossbones are like the 5 boss enemies, and you'll fight them all a bunch of times. And once you have fought them the first time, they will sometimes just show up in random missions. And all of a sudden you'll have a boss in your mission. Yeah, which is always really exciting. You, instead of getting reinforcements each round, you'll just get one boss that you have to take down.
Right.
So you'll learn all of their move sets and how to counter them pretty well because you'll fight all the bosses a lot. And that may make it sound like there's not a lot of variety because there's only so many Hydra agents. There's only so many Lilin, which are like the demons. And then the bosses. But there's a lot of different kinds of missions. And on top of that, there's hundreds of team combinations. And the 3 heroes that you pick will totally change how the mission goes and what your playstyle is. So I never felt like in 80 hours, I never felt like it was getting repetitive or boring. I never went into a mission like, oh, this one again, because like the 3 heroes I brought would be different. You know, the enemies that showed up would be different. Sometimes a boss would show up. It always felt like something unique was happening.
Oh yeah, man! Spider-Man can just kind of do.
Spider-Man can just do whatever he wants. He can just do whatever he wants. I think as far as recommendations, Spider-Man's amazing. Blade is just a assassin. He just is like high damage. He does bleed to targets, and he can do life steal if they're bleeding. Steal their blood to heal himself. Blade is definitely incredible. I love Magic. I love Ghost Rider. Wolverine obviously is like a very strong tank because he can heal himself. But everyone is fun. And to be honest, like I didn't start the game thinking, oh, it's going to be Magic or, oh, it's going to be Ghost Rider. But I just but through the getting to know the characters and like the conversation stuff, I started to really love those characters. And then through like Magic's playstyle with the portals, I really connected, and Magic was one of the first characters that I got to best friend status after Spider-Man.
Yeah, I can tell because there's been like a lot of Magic footage like with the portals and stuff. I mean,
it's such a fun one to show off, right?
Yeah.
Very, very cool play style.
Is there anything you were less positive about?
I think that the biggest downside is the limitations of its budget because it's such a big game, like 80 hours, right?
Yeah.
And it's fully voice acted. Every line of dialogue.
Every line.
And and the script is just massive. The downside is that the animations, like in conversation, the faces and the like, there's no performance capture. It is a little bit Fallout. It is a little bit stiff when you're talking to somebody, and sometimes there's like pretty emotional, highly charged things happening, and their body language and their facial expressions don't really match what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I got used to it, and I found the charm in it, but it is easy to imagine a better version of this game that had an infinite budget. And I don't think that's always true for every game. Like, I don't think God of War Ragnarok would have been a better game with more money.
I don't think it needs it.
Maybe the opposite. But this one would have. Now, would it have been a different game with a higher budget? Would it have been more mainstream? Probably, because it's a pretty niche game. But yeah, you can see, like I was mentioning, a little bit of like jank in the third person controls, and like kind of it's a little bit buggy at times. Like sometimes you'll kill an enemy, you'll get an enemy to 1 health and they just won't die, and the whole rest of the battle you just have this one dude who's running around that can't die. You're like, this isn't fair. What am I supposed to do? But sometimes your goal isn't to kill everyone, so it's okay. Like you can let one guy run around. But yeah, it's a little rough on the edges, and the performances, because there's no performance capture, the like animations and stuff can take you out of moments. It really can. It's not all cutscenes. A lot of it is just like that, like live rendered, like when you're just talking to somebody and you're just staring at their face, you know. So I wish that stuff could have been better, but you know, given the scope of this game and like the size of the script, I kind of give it a pass. And I really did give it a pass. I don't think I mentioned yet, but I gave it a 9 out of 10 on the site. It's averaging, I think, 84 on Metacritic.
Yeah, 84 last time we checked.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's pretty well received overall, and I'm just really excited for people to finally get their hands on this. It's been about a year since it was announced, and you have to play it yourself to really get it, because it's so different than any other game in its genre. I think that you know, comparisons to XCOM are apt just because of the studio, but probably Fire Emblem is the better comparison, just because it's so much friendship, relationship building, talky stuff. Yeah, I played it on PC. And I streamed a lot of it to my Steam Deck. It does not have official Steam Deck support yet. That's coming later. So, you know, play it on your own risk there. And it's on Switch too, I think.
Yeah, I think it is as well.
And I think it's
blow up.
I think it's a phenomenal handheld game, because it's so much text and dialogue and just sort of slow paced a lot of the time. It's really nice to be able to sort of like just kind of sit back and relax with it. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to play it on console, it's going to be a great experience too. That's going to do it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you check out the full review over on the Gamer website. Like, subscribe, hit that bell, and visit us on thegamer.com. That's The Gamer, no space.